Bit of time. What is up? Celtics late night, first to the floor. Greeny, 2 wins in a row. I'm a little bit dusty after some Super Bowl shenanigans yesterday, but the Celtics have brought me back to life with another win over the once mediocre franchise, the Miami Heat. Celtics win 103-85. Celtics on another winning streak. How are we doing?
Can I ask you though, this is now, I think, 8 of 9 against Miami.
Yep.
It's always fun to beat them, but it doesn't quite feel the same in this new post Jimmy era. I don't know what it is. It's like Andrew Wiggins just didn't have the same spice as going up against Jimmy Butler, but
no, look, I'm not sure it'll ever get quite back to how good it felt to beat them. Even early in the season, we had a win against them. I don't think Jimmy played in that game either because he never plays anymore. Mm-hmm. But it still feels good to, silence the quarter-filled stadium, the casino.
Yeah, winning in Miami is always, it's always great. I think they said it on the broadcast. They had won, or maybe it's Derrick White has now won 7 in a row in Miami. It's just, it's the Garden South. I don't know how else to say it. They have. It's like how many they have they just took over the Garden. That's theirs now. So they got MSG. They got the Garden in Miami, and you got the Garden in Boston. It's incredible how they went on the road.
If they can just turn TD Garden into TD Garden, then we're going to be really, really cooking with gas here.
Did you see Grandy is over the last 41 days, the Celtics have had 14 road games. Over the next 30 days, they only have 3. It's like, shit. Now they have to play at home for a month straight.
Yeah. I know. As fun as the Knicks game was, I was it confirmed all of my prior affirmations about how much that matchup is good for us. The only concern is that we've kind of solidified or made steps towards solidifying having home court in that matchup. That's my only concern with the playoffs, is having too many home games at this point.
I know, but honestly, it's the way they're playing. I'm ready because they've now returned home after a little mini game road trip against the Spurs. This is the game that they've been dropping 6 or 7 times this year. The way that they're playing, I will be shocked if they lay an egg on national TV.
I was say, well, we talked about it last time. This feels like it could. The difference is national TV, Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, it has some of the juicy elements. The game before the All-Star break, I'm not sure if that's good or bad. You'd like to think that they're comfortable emptying the tank, knowing they have a week off after that game. But, we kind of were right. It's been kind of easy to pick the spots for letdowns. I will be honest, I thought tonight was kind of ticking a few of these boxes, coming off a big
how they started, they were proving you right for the first, 6 minutes of the first quarter. I'm convinced it's the uniform, man. Stop. Every time they wear this uniform, they play like shit. I don't have the numbers to back it up, but I bet you they support that theory.
It's a disgusting uniform. It's one of those things where I think just by existing close to it, my brain and soul have kind of just been like, do I actually kind of like the jersey? But I think it's just because now they've just started wearing it. I'm just used to it now. But
first I thought it was, am I just old? Is this just the first instance of me not understanding the youth and what's cool? But then I'm thinking to myself, no, this is the Boston Celtics. It's a garbage uniform, and it's no surprise they play garbage basketball while they wear it. I don't get it.
I will say, Tatum, someone did ask him about the home road thing, and Tatum said we do have to at least address it. He was like, we've got to play better at home. We've been letting our fans down recently, which he's absolutely right.
That's what he said coming off of, remember, that's what fueled them all last year. He's like, we lost game 7 at home. We lost so many home playoff games the year before. Our fans deserve better, and then they were dominant. Now if Tatum is now getting to the point where he's like, all right, it's time to cut the shit. Like, we need to start protecting our home floor. I feel pretty good about it because, I feel like a lot of those home losses coincide with Tatum not being aggressive games where he's only shooting 12 or 15 times a game. So if him acknowledging it is what snaps him out of that, then here we go. Like, that's what we want.
Well, okay, Welch Brady here. I've noticed a couple of comments from you here on the Tatum usage agenda.
The what?
Have you not? You've been part of this civil war online.
It's a usage agenda. I don't think anyone who's arguing that high usage Tatum is bad.
There are people out there. I think the people that are arguing against it is that it's not actually the right stat to use, and that Tatum's usage is always high. It just doesn't necessarily bear itself out.
I think the pushback is the people who say like he needs the ball all the time and are using usage to illustrate
That's
that.
Correct.
The fact of the matter is like he does have the ball all the time. It's what he decides to do with it that impacts that usage percentage formula, right? When Tatum has a night where he's not taking a bunch of shots, but he's creating, he has 8-9 assists, his usage isn't going to be as high. But we all know what playoff Tatum looks like, and that's the one who has the ball the most, who's taking all the shots. Like, that's never been a thing. It's just, there are other ways the Celtics can win where you don't have to burn out your superstar having him shoot 30 times a night. That's why Brad built this roster, I feel like. But I don't know, it shouldn't be a civil war because everyone can agree that high usage Tatum is meaning that he's probably going to be having a pretty good night, and they're probably going to win when that happens.
Yeah, and in the playoffs, he led the team in usage, time of possession, touches.
Yeah,
and by the way, he leads the team in all of those stats again this season. And it just looks and feels a little bit different on a night like tonight where there is no Jalen. But he has the ball in his hands all the time. And by the way, Tatum's kind of in control of his own destiny. Like the way that some people are insinuating it's like it's an agenda from like Joe or Jalen or whatever. And it's like, no, Tatum is in control of this a lot of the time. There's definitely moments and possessions and stretches where
the agenda is Tatum, you get to decide whatever the hell you want to do on every single possession.
Exactly.
Like, you are going to have the ball. If you want to shoot it, awesome. Guess what? You're also allowed to take whatever shot you want, whether it's a pull-up three, a mid-range, at like he decides what he wants to do first, and then everybody else blends around that. And that's how it's been, pretty much since he's gotten to the team. So.
He's kind of in control of all of our destinies and fates at this point. Right. And I think you've seen it in a couple of moments here. So I think today was a very clear first half, second half Tatum. And there was that stretch in the last minute of the game. The Heat go on a 7-0 run to bring the lead kind of back to single-digit range. And Joe was furious with specifically it looked like Tatum. Tatum took a bad shot.
Well, those two end of possessions.
And then didn't get back on defense. And Joe was like,
I mean, you can understand the 2-for-1, but again, it's like, and even the layup wasn't a bad shot. And that's a tough part because, because they sort of fumbled the 2-for-1 by giving up that quick bucket. It's like you couldn't hold it for the last shot, and he still got to play right at the rim. It's just, you can't be up 16 with what was it, 70 seconds left? You're up 16 and you end it down 7 or down 9 or up 9. That's just, you have to close quarters better.
Yeah, and no one has explicitly said that today that Joe kind of like called him out, I don't think, but there was definitely like a moment where Joe was pissed at Tatum for not getting back in for that last possession where Bam ends up hitting a bank shot. And so like maybe that would have happened either way. But Tatum came out with a different level of emotion, not a level of engaged and emotional in Tatum that I expected to see in this game. When I saw that he was questionable, I know how many minutes he's been playing. I was expecting to get a 7 for 17 with 5 turnover type of game when you're like, what are we doing here?
And then he started 0 for 5, right? He started 0 for 5, 0 for 4 from 3 or something like that. It had the early signs of a coasting game, but I think the way that the first non-Tatum shift that sort of turned the game in that second quarter, I think.
Oh my God!
Because they were within 6 after the first quarter, but then right away they cut it to 2-4, tied it up. I think that combined with he was probably pretty embarrassed for how dog shit he shot the ball early. You saw a more like pissed off Tatum in that third quarter. And then once he saw one drop, it's like, all right, I can actually, it's an option for me to make shots that I can take. Then his last 2 third quarters have been so
Unreal.
incredible. It's like, you only can really pray that he just misses at this point, because when he's not missing, there isn't, it didn't matter who's in front of him for either the Knicks or the Heat. People are just too small for him. Like, he's just too big. He's got too much size. And if he's going to start finishing around the rim, there's really no way for you to consistently defend him.
Yeah, back-to-back games where he's looked like one of the best players on the planet for stretches. Third quarter tonight, 20 points, 8 for 11, 3 for 5 from 3, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 0 turnovers.
I was going to say, I doubt he turned it over.
Yeah.
It was, honestly, again, it's like, where was I hear all this, Eric Spoelstra outcoaches Missoula. Where was his strategy to, remove Tatum or, take the ball out of his hands, cause turnovers? He got wherever he wanted. Just because they didn't have the length. For whatever reason, I felt like Bam never guarded him. I felt like it was always a smaller defender. And, Porzingis came around. I think they're just playing back to their standard, and it's no surprise that they're winning all these games by 20+.
Yeah, and this is why we see teams, and like Ime Udoka, Spoelstra's done it. Steve, a bunch of teams do it, where they send doubles and blitzes at Tatum even early before he gets going, because it's like, if you don't, then you do run the risk of what has happened in both the Knicks game and this game. If you play him in traditional drop or switching or whatever, you allow Tatum to kind of dictate the matchups that he likes against your team, you run the risk of a third quarter like tonight happening. And when the Celtics experience a Jayson Tatum gasm like they did in both the Knicks game and tonight, like, you just don't win those games. Like, no. There are very, very few examples of Tatum going nuclear and the Celtics losing. It just doesn't happen.
Right. Because you have to remember, it's like, once he starts going nuclear, then they start changing defenses, putting more attention on him. Well, now you have 40% shooters getting wide open, catch and shoot threes. And guess what? They're not going to shoot 20% forever. One of them is going to snap out of it. And now, if you look at Hauser over his last 20 or so games, he's back. Horford had the game of his life today. He just must hate Miami. He reached down deep. Pritchard didn't even make a 3, or was like 1 of 8 or 1 of 9, and KP was 1 of 6. And it still didn't matter, because the safety valve threes were there for when Tatum wasn't. Before it took him a while to get going. Hauser carried early. Horford's threes were big, and KP struggled from 3 but was effective on his 2s, and they just found a way to get stops. And, when the Celtics aren't turning it over against Miami, we know the Heat's offense isn't good enough. If they're not going to have black, dark magic, 3-point shooting aberration, and that's been true since the bubble, right? It's like the things that lose against Miami are turnovers and high points off turnovers for the opponent. And the Celtics probably had 8 or 9 turnovers today. Few points off turnovers. They played to their
6.
standard, and they didn't even shoot the ball for the first, quarter and a half.
I know, and honestly, this was kind of they don't need to shoot the ball incredibly well in order to win. So in the finals, they shot 33, 34% from 3 for the whole series. It's just, all you need is these little mini avalanches that are typically spearheaded from Tatum initiating, getting downhill, hitting a couple shots, and then it just starts to open up. But yeah, when you're now kicking to a Sam Hauser who over his last 12 games is shooting 51% from 3,
makes all the difference, because now you have these, you're in these games that are between 7 and 8 points, right? All of a sudden, the Celtics defense is locking in. Now come the transition threes. In just 2 or 3 possessions of consecutive stops, that lead could be doubled, right? It could be 14. It could be 15. And those are the deflating. It's like you're just running uphill where you can't catch your breath, because, you have to always be focused on Tatum. And if you're not efficient on the other end, it's like, pick your poison. And what was going on during those slums of the December gross basketball was they weren't hitting those back-breaking, wide-open momentum of a game-changing threes. Now they're back to it, whether it's White, Hauser, pick a name. We're seeing during this, I think they're 7-3 over the last 10, 8-2, something crazy like that. during this entire stretch where they're winning at an 800 clip, what is it? It's guys making open threes and Tatum dominating his matchups and becoming an efficient offensive player. Like, that's the formula.
Hey.
That's what we know wins the title. And they're finally playing back to it after like 6 weeks of being allergic to playing this way.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to probably talk about it to the end of the season, but those 2 wins or games, Hawks and Rockets, like, you can all of a sudden you're 12-2 in your last 14 if those games go the other way, but you're 7-3 in your last 10, you're 10-4 in your last 14 with the second best net rating. Like, the team is definitely back to what we expected and what we're used to. And even with guys kind of in and out of the lineup, like, again, no Jalen tonight, no Drew tonight, no KP and Drew in the Knicks game, 2 big wins. And like, this wasn't like an easy game. Like, it was a rock fight. 18-24, Celtics down 6 at the end of the first quarter. And that second quarter run fueled by Pritchard, Hauser, and Derrick. Yeah. And that's twice 2 games in a row now.
Non-Tatum minutes. It's like...
No Jalen, too.
And to be honest, this was a low Pritchard scoring night. So it's like you have to look at how you have certain windows to build your lead against the Celtics. And the first is going to be the minutes Tatum was on the floor where he can't make a shot. And B, it's going to be the non-Tatum minutes. Well, if the Celtics are going to even be even in the non-Tatum minutes, you're in a whole lot of trouble because eventually Tatum is going to make a jump shot. So the fact that they can survive the non-Tatum minutes with no Jalen and Pritchard not even really making a shot is pretty impressive when you consider those are usually those 2 and KP are usually the driving forces of the non-Tatum minutes. And, Cornette didn't even score today. So it's like, really, they had no bench production and still found a way to build that separation.
Beautiful, man. And like Pritchard, like that's back-to-back games where, I know, so Pritchard didn't score the ball great tonight, as you said. Like, what was he? So he's 2 for 9, but 10 rebounds, all defensive, 8 assists, 2 steals, and 0 turnovers. And like, he was aggressive. He was aggressive. And like, that's what annoyed me in the Mavs game. He's like, he's got the green light. You've got to take advantage of it. And even when you're missing, if you're being aggressive and taking those like deep shots and like you're putting pressure on the defense, like he's on the scouting report. Like, despite him missing some shots here and there, like last 10 games, Pritchard's 45% from 3. Like,
I mean, you still have to close out on him.
We know what it says on the yeah.
His gravity and his threat as a shooter is the same as if he's 5 for 5 or 0 for 5. You have to guard him the same way. And I think what's interesting about him is, a lot of his threes were rim outs. And you don't usually see Payton Pritchard have 2 stinkers in a row. So, I imagine he's going to be pretty good, on Wednesday. But again, it's just he feels like a more well-rounded, developed point guard to where now, early in his career, if he was 2 for 9 and 1 for 8 for 3, it was probably a disaster night for him. But now, the way he defends, the rebounding, the playmaking, and the ball security, he's making an impact without scoring. And again, on a night where it's, Tatum is on fire, it's pretty easy to just be like, give it to him and get out of the way. But I'm just, I'm so much more confident with him with the ball in his hands to make something happen, especially on nights where he's not making a shot.
And this is what has made this team great over the past 18 months. Has not just been the shooting that the national media or intelligentsia has gotten caught up in. It's that this team will bludgeon you on the margins as well. And Pritchard is like a margins guy. People, he's going to get a label because of him having a certain skin tone. And he is a white shooter. There's no doubt about that, but doesn't turn the ball over. He's an elite rebounder for his size. He's starting to generate assists. Like, he helps you bludgeon the other team on the margins. And now it's like, when he does go 2 for 9, 1, you're putting pressure on the defense by shooting, even if you're missing. But 2, if you're pouring in 10 defensive rebounds for your backup point guard who's 6'1" in shoes, like that's just big. And it, is part of what makes this team special.
There's nothing more important than finishing off defensive possessions cleanly. And for a team that, especially against Miami, who's playing double big, that has a tendency to give up second chance points, if my point guard's going to, he had to have, him and Al probably both had 10 rebounds today. But like, if your point guard wants to lead the team in rebounding, that's fine enough for me. That's finding a way to impact winning without scoring the ball. And, that's what complete basketball players do. But I honestly, to your point about how he just has to keep shooting it and the threat of him shooting it, I feel the same way about Tatum's pull-up three. I feel like I don't care if he spams it 25 times a game. The value in that shot for how it manipulates the defense is too important for him to pass that up for a mid-range, to keep going into a mid-range jump. Take the pull-up two. Eventually, you're going to hit him, and then you're going to rip off 2 or 3 in a row, and that's how you rocket ship to another level.
Yeah,
I feel the same way for his pull-up as you probably do with Payton's open three.
Absolutely, absolutely. I forget who pulled the numbers together, but there's when Tatum hits X amount of threes, the Celtics just win 90% of their games.
Yeah, but it's the pull-up three specifically.
Correct.
That one, that three where it's coming off a high screen where you're catching the defender. Donovan Mitchell is really, really good at it too. Darius Garland's really, really good at it. Dame, Steph, like that is the shot that
all the 6'4" guys and then Tatum.
Yeah, that's the one that if you can always have a defense be worried about that shot, it's going to open your driving lanes, and if he makes them, it's going to speed up his entire process of now he's in the zone much quicker. Now you have a couple fuck you death blow threes, and you're off and running.
Yeah, and I think it's fair that the team felt like a collective, head hanging effect from just everyone being in a shooting slump. But now that they've started to climb out of it a little bit, everyone's just got to have that trigger. And that's what makes this team dangerous, because we've talked about a million times. You turn down open looks, it leads to worse looks and it leads to turnovers, which is just death on the margins. Al Horford, speaking of margins, is someone that had 0 fouls, 0 turnovers, 10 boards, 2 blocks, 4 for 8 from 3, 6 for 11 from the field, 33 minutes. That's a man that knows that the All-Star break is on the way. But he looked really good in the Cleveland game. Yep. Pretty solid in the New York game, despite not hitting shots. Again, don't need to be worried about Al Horford. I just like seeing the glimpses. He's been in a shooting slump. I don't think that's an age-related thing. That's Derrick White's been in one. Essentially, everyone's been in one. Yep. But man, if he starts to get going from 3, hit a couple. He had a nice, little pump fake.
The fake.
Ooh.
But to be honest, the most impressive play for Horford for me for the entire night was when he attacked someone and hit a little push shot floater. For whatever reason, Al Horford cannot make these quick shot bunny he just can't do it. It's everyone has to have a fault. It's the trade-off for him being a 40% three-point shooter that he just has CTE trying to make a layup. But he made that little push floater over someone. I'm like, that's 27-year-old Al Horford. He's feeling good. But then he went and made his open threes. And again, those are the safety valve. Because again, I think it got down to 5 or 6.
It got down to 5.
Yeah. So those are the ones where they were missing. And like you said, they would hang their heads. They would, their defensive effort would drop. And now that's a 3-point game. This time they make their open 3. They feel much better. They have that cushion. Now it goes from a 5-point game to a 12-point game to a 14-point game. Now it's a blowout. So it's that's why I feel like Joe always stresses, it always comes back to their offense. When they're efficient and they make their open looks, everything looks better.
It's beautiful. Yeah, and I don't need him to be at 45. He was just so cold. And so him opening up the floor allows you to play him with Luke. And those Luke and Al had a couple of nice big to big passing.
Well, that's all Cornet, dude. It's crazy. I'm almost at the point where I don't know. You can't live without Cornet.
Yeah, you literally can't.
He has been too good of a rotation big to where I don't know what they're going to have to do to. Well, so
they've got his bird rights. They've got his bird rights, which I got wrong on the last show. So they can offer him essentially whatever they want. Obviously, we know the salary tax and luxury tax constraints, but assuming
I don't know, triple his salary and call it a day.
I totally they're Bobby Benning. Yeah,
the $15 million you just saved by cutting Jaden Springer, give
straight to Cornet.
Give that to Luke Cornet.
Straight to Cornet.
3 years at $5 million deal. Done.
Done.
Like I'm sure that's not how it works, but that should be how.
Should go directly to Luke Cornett. Yeah, man. Like I was worried last episode because he was so good in that Knicks game. But thank you to the Discord for pointing out that we have his bird rights. And I know Bobby Manning on the Garden Report mentioned that he turned down like an $8 million per year from Utah, which I actually hadn't heard that number before. So I wonder if you
probably only get one of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, exactly. So it has to be a 3 year for 18
or maybe like
a
like a 2+1, right?
Exactly.
Where the third year is a team option or something, or a player option.
Yeah,
but
and if you keep playing like that,
I'm watching him today, and I'm just thinking, I'm like,
he's too good.
Even with Kata's development, there's just too many things that Luke does at a beyond replacement level that I just think are too integral to how they play. I just don't know how, it sounds so crazy because that's your third center, but it's honestly the truth when you watch these games. It really
I loved Doris Burke giving Luke Cornett the love as your third center, but and part of it is while I think you could find someone else to maybe do the Luke Cornett stuff, part of it is now he's been here for a certain amount of time, and you just can't accelerate that.
Chemistry are just as important to me as the skill set. There's plenty of tall 7-footer dudes who have a soft touch, but it's the connectivity. He understands how to play with your two best players. He's selfless. He understands the system. It's just such a pain in the ass. That's the one extension that they don't have is the one that they need.
No, I mean, look, I trust Brad to get it done. I think Cornett, absolutely loves being here. But yeah, man, that you don't find that chemistry and that continuity is part of why this team is so good that a lot of teams just don't have around the league. I think that's why Cleveland's found a lot of success this year. Their core four guys have just been together for so long. And someone like Cornett, Tatum builds this type of chemistry with every big man that he plays with. Daniel Tice kind of being the original, the dude that helped Tatum hone his pick and roll skills in the bubble against the Raptors and the Heat. And Luke Cornett's kind of the next iteration of that guy, but you have to find a way to keep him. Another big man that we got back today after having a non-COVID illness, Kristaps Porzingis, team high, plus 19 tonight. 17 points on 15 shots, 1 for 6 from 3, 9 boards, 2 assists, 2 blocks. Pretty solid. I want to ask you this, though.
Yep.
Good game. Do you think there's something I'm just monitoring now because obviously they played so well against the Knicks. There've been some clunkiness with KP since he's come back. I said on the last show, does KP need to play just 15% less like KP and 15% more like Luke Cornett, where we're just forcing in the post a little bit too much? And tonight I thought there was some really nice into the post, back out, Derrick White cutting, find him on the roll, and then to the corner, just a little bit extra pace, because when Luke Cornett's playing, it's just the ball's popping. I'll let you take it from there, though.
I don't know. I do think there are times where, just by the nature of what post play is, it's a slower offensive approach. I don't know if there's a correlation between, because his post up frequency is pretty much the exact same as we saw last year, right? They're both at around 11% of his possessions. The production is slightly worse. And I think that's what you're feeling is, because I was curious about this too, and I looked it up. He went from about 62% on post-ups last year to 52% this year. So I think what we're all experiencing is these little turnaround hooks that he was either getting to the line on or he was making. He's just making 1 or 2 fewer a game. And in those same minutes, you're also getting these not super aggressive Tatum showings where think about early today, where he's settling for a lot of early threes. He's not really driving because the spacing is, maybe at times jacked up. So I'm not really sure it's less post-ups as much as it is making sure you're maximizing your spacing, making sure KP is sitting out on the perimeter just as much to open up the driving lanes so that, in the non-Tatum minutes, you can feed him in the post. I just think it's all timing of when they need to utilize it, right? If Tatum's on the floor, I would prefer KP to be more on the perimeter and more of a, maybe if it's or on the free throw line.
Pick and roll.
Something like that. When it's Jalen and KP minutes and Tatum's on the bench, now you play through KP. Now put him on the block. utilize your efficient offense that way. In that approach, you get the bits of both, but you're maximizing everybody. I think when he first came back with the starters, you saw even with Tatum and Brown on the floor, they're playing through the post a lot to get him into game shape. I think as the year goes on, we're going to see them with the same type of rotation and strategy that we saw last year. Because again, the frequency is the same. It's just a matter of when that frequency is happening. I think that can be tweaked.
Yeah, I just think spacing's a good call. I think blending in a few. I like KP on the roll just as much as I like him popping and getting to the post. I think just getting a little more take what the game's giving to you as opposed to trying to force it a little bit too much. But as you said, it might just be purely because he's missing slightly more.
He's just missing slightly more.
Yeah.
He went from the 96th percentile in post-up offense to the 85th. So it's still an unbelievably efficient way to operate. It's just he's not shooting an other godly 62%. And they're doing it. I'd have to rewatch it and chart it, but it feels like a lot of these KP post-ups are coming when Tatum's on the floor, when I feel like it should be flipped. Have him pick and pop so Tatum can draw two behind the back pass. Boom, that's an easy three. Or if they don't help off KP, now Tatum is getting to the rim. Whereas with Jaylen, I feel like you have to, really focus in on efficient offensive approaches. And that's where you play through two-man game with him in Jaylen, give it to him on the block, let him exploit mismatches. And I think we'll see that because you're not crazy if you're watching these starters play and you're like, why are they stuck in mud? Why isn't Tatum going off? And he's on the floor for that. I just think they just need to be better about when they use everybody's skill set.
Yeah, and I think when you think about the playoffs as well, it's like that KP post-up that's when you really see the value of it, where things slow down, where everything gets in the mud. You fast forward to a potential matchup against the Thunder, for example, where their defense is just so hellacious and Tatum and Jaylen are having trouble getting past J-Dub and these guys on the perimeter. It's you just throw it to KP and you need to generate some form of efficiency, and he's going to be able to do that.
And let's be honest, he's had, I think I saw the stat today, it's a career high 14 straight games of 16 plus points. He's been one of their most consistent offensive performers since he's been back. I think what's weird is we all waited for KP to come back, and then he came back and they, were 18-12 or something crazy, something a little bit under the pace I think we were expecting. And I think a lot of that is just getting back to understanding the balance of your shot profile when he's on the floor.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily saying that I think that there's a problem. I'm just monitoring it, and I'm just and two plays I love today. I mentioned before. It's similar to when Jaylen drives. You need him to be open-minded too, but he can't be just pre-deciding whether or not he's shooting or passing. When KP gets the ball in the post, which I like today, I felt like he was looking to kick it back out to Derrick, who threw it right back down to him. And Derrick cut, you find him to the corner. It's just I
think he also he found Horford for one of Horford's threes. So that's
he had one that they missed as well. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm looking for. It's just you leverage the gravity. It's the same as the Tatum pull-up. Leveraging the gravity, you got to keep going to it, and then you get the ball movement. And then once that's happening and the defense is in rotation, then we're good to go.
Although I'm curious, what is his – I want to bet if you go to his Basketball Reference and you look at his free throw attempt rate, I bet you he's dropped from 43, 44% to 30, 31%. I feel like he's never getting to the line on these turnaround post-ups quite like he was last year. That's just my gut.
So he was 40% last year, or 40.2 and 40.9 in Washington, and this year he's at 34.3. So your eyes don't deceive you.
There's a noticeable difference in him not getting that turnaround foul to the same degree. And I think that's, again, playing into why these post-ups feel different, because those were 2 points every single time. Now he's not getting – and that's why I bet you his points per possession is down 0.04. So I bet it's 0.016 or whatever to 0.0 or 104. It's that dip in free throws and drop in field goal percentage is why it feels different.
Yeah. So I think then that's similar to Horford in some threes. I think that stuff's just going to level out. And even still, he is above 60. He's at 61% true shooting. So like we're nitpicking because we experienced like one of the most efficient players in basketball last season. Like
Right,
he's still.
and I think that's how it's warped our brains thinking about everything with this team. It's like you get one of those seasons in your lifetime, and this is more along the lines of what like a normal dominant NBA season looks like. Whereas last year was, legitimately a top 6 season in the history of the league. That just does not happen a lot. This, is a step below, but it's still, I mean, their plus 9 point differential is probably close to top 15 all time. So it's like they're still dominant. It's just a different version.
Yeah, they're creeping up. They've been statistically better than Cleveland now for kind of like a extended stretch now. The net rating is close to 10 on the season. Like this, as you said, they're having a crazy season. They've just had a couple of unlucky losses, and the Thunder and Cavs have been going absolutely nuts as well. The only other two bits before we get out of here, Derrick White, it's the 3-year anniversary today of the Derrick White trade. Thank you to Romeo Langford. Thank you to Josh Richardson. Thank you to Blake Wesley, which I believe is who the Spurs drafted.
I was going to say thank you to the pick swap.
2028. Shout out the 14-year-old that's going to be playing for the Spurs in a few years. But man, he did it again tonight. He was 2 points short of me hitting the parlay, sadly, but he hit the prayer over to end the quarter. Was classic.
Scale out of 1 to 10, like he has to torment at this point, right? Like,
has to.
Like how we always talk about Celtic killers, like
Caleb Martin
has to be the Heat killer for them, and it's just tough.
Yeah, no, you've got obviously the game 6 tip in. He's just been really good against him in pretty much every game, but he had that 38-point explosion in game 4. Game 4 it was, yeah. And then he was awesome earlier in the year in Miami, and then obviously he had the shot over the outstretched arms, pretty much right in front of the Heat. But
you know what? We were owed that because Bam was garbage before the half.
Yes, that was even.
But there's just something about like Derrick doing it on Derrick White trade day in that building against that team. It's just like, that's some cosmic stuff. But he's another guy. He didn't shoot it all that well tonight from 3, but another guy that has found his outside shot, and as a result, the Celtics just have stopped losing. It
definitely feels like the energy and the vibe, and like someone like Derrick someone like the defensive playmaking stuff that he's, that's what we love him for. More of that from him has coincided with him making shots as well. But yeah, like Pritchard tonight, didn't need to be insanely efficient, but he was doing a lot of good things out there.
It's just nice to see them, play the way they should play. Like that's
the way they should play.
They don't need to overachieve, underachieve. Like just be normal. Especially against a team like this. It's like, avoid the letdown factor, get out of there on a road, a road win, and be done with it.
22-6 on the road. We are now 38-16, Greeny, which means we need to go 2-3. Or is it 2-3, right? Because you got to win.
Basically, it's going to take them losing 4 or 5 to not hit. So it's like this was another one of the swing games where you got it, you needed it, you got it, and now it's like I'm not going to say it's a lock until they get the 40th win, but like it really, I cannot imagine this team loses 4 or 5. I just can't. I just can't. They haven't lost 4 or 5 since like the rebuild year when they drafted Smart. Like it's just there's too much talent. The schedule is what it is. I want to say they've done it, but they still have 2 to go.
No, because I felt so comfortable and confident multiple times.
Right.
Well,
remember it was 8-4. It was like they needed to. I feel like we were on when it was 8-4, and we were like, this is the stretch where it's like the make or break sort of if they do it or don't. And they've ripped off 6 out of the last 7 to totally flip their chase. And again, it's annoying. Had they held on to the ball versus the Hawks, defending a little bit better against the Rockets, they'd have it already.
Have it, yes. But
to me, I mean, you know the importance that I put on this stat.
I know,
So,
and it's funny. It's complete. It's just like how your brain works. The closer they get to it, the more I'm like, it doesn't. I'm like, it's nonsense. It doesn't matter. But I'm like, well, that's because you have it in hand now. That's why we feel like that.
Right.
It's like,
but when
if
you don't, it only matters when there's a real
don't have it.
You weren't going to get it.
Exactly.
And while it does not guarantee shit, I would much rather go into a playoff run having checked the most important box in NBA history for the last 50 years. That's really all it comes down to. I would rather go into a playoff run with that having been done than trying to be one of the 4 teams in the last 50 years to win without it. Like, I just don't like those odds.
It's already hard enough to win a title. It's already hard enough to win back-to-back titles. Can we not try and be like, even of those 4 teams, like you'd have to be like an extra outlier because some of those teams have like extenuating circumstances. And it's like, I don't want to be just us and the 2006 Miami Heat and trying to do that thing. And so it's
what's crazy? I looked it up right before this. They're 4 games off their record at the All-Star break last year. So it's like, you're literally having the exact same, give or take 3, but you had much different health issues. I mean, there's just different context around each season. But when you take a step back and you're like, they have a +9 differential. They're 4 wins off their pace last year, given everything that's happened this time around. And they can punch the 40-20 ticket if they beat the Spurs and the Sixers. Like, you have to be able to do that and just, get through it and start to focus on, health for the rest of the run and getting ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, man. Sounds simple when you say it like that.
I know, it is. And they'll probably lose. There's probably, like you said, it's going to come down to that Pistons game on the fucking, back-to-back on the road against the Pistons. Let's hope not. But
yeah, I'd hate, like after the Knicks game, which we'll probably win, it'll be like we will have lost the Spurs game at home, obviously. And then obviously we should have beat the Sixers, but we'll lose. And then we'll smoke the Knicks and feel good. And we'll need to go one of the 2. He's got to win one of the 2 going into that back-to-back, and it's just like it's going to be crunch time against the Raptors, but maybe not. They've given us every reason to believe that we're at, but this is the thing. This is what we said after the Mavs game. Every moment you think you're comfortable and you're safe and you should start to, you won 4 in a row.
That's why I'm so fascinated, because this is the return home trap game that they've literally lost the last 5 of them.
Correct. So well, it is a very short road trip. It was only 2 games.
Well, last one was only 3 games, and they lost it. So it's like, all right, here's 2 games.
I said we're really testing it. It's like, how short does the road trip have to be for us to actually win a home game after we go away? So, but I'm excited, man. Wemby, Fox, like it should be cranked up enough from like a juice perspective.
Now, do you think
the break coming?
Do you think anybody sits last game before the break?
No, I think if Jayson was going to sit, it was going to be tonight. Like if the break's coming, the game after the Spurs game.
I think
Drew's going to sit. I think Drew's going to sit.
Yeah, he'll sit. But.
That's clearly a real injury because now he's missed 3 games in a row multiple times.
Is it a real injury, or is it like he could play if it was the playoffs, but it's the All-Star break, so let's give him rest,
I'm guessing. I guess both of those things can be true. Like it's the same thing that's popped up. Anytime anyone misses at least 3 games, I'm like, that's a little more than rest. And I don't know, it hasn't seemed to like, I haven't noticed it when he's played outside of him maybe just not being as good this year. But then maybe that's why you attribute it, is because he's got a sore fucking shoulder.
And again, honestly, they can afford it, right? They can afford to sit him, even if he's not, 100%, take the extra time. And I would say the same thing about Horford. I would say the same thing about Tatum, even though he'll not, like, you have the roster to be smart. And if this is just part of the court, I mean, if he's not playing after the All-Star break, we have a little bit of a different concern level. But for now, it's like he's 34. He played a lot of basketball. Like, maybe he slept wrong. I don't give a shit. Like, give him rest. So
I would just say Tatum is starting to creep up the total minutes list leaderboard as opposed to down the total list minutes played leaderboard. Get to 40-20 and fucking kidnap Deuce or something. Yeah. Like, because I don't know. At the same time, you get as I told my dad today, it's like you get a week off between the season and the playoffs anyway, and there's so many days in between some of those early playoff games that like he's probably going to be fine. But
it does. I mean, again, it can't
top
hurt.
Five.
It can't hurt.
Top five. Yeah. Top five in minutes.
He's played a lot of basketball and he's too important. So it's like it's already impossible to get him to sit. If you have a game that he actually agrees to and you can pull it off, you have to do it. Yeah. He hasn't had a game off since before Christmas. It's now the middle of February and he plays 40 minutes. Like he's going to be burned out in the playoffs. Like you have to rest him, just like everybody else.
Yes, please. Yeah, and I know he likes to cruise a little bit here and there, but it's a lot of minutes. And
I would rather he not tank his averages and just fucking take a rest day, man.
He doesn't understand that part.
You're the only player in the league that we are begging to abide by load management. Like just once, like just do it once, and then we won't ask again for another 2 weeks. But like you're playing too much basketball right now.
Playing too much. It's all right. I know. On one hand, it's like it's the coolest thing about him. On the other hand, it's like fuck.
I know. And the worst part is like he's playing so good that like I don't want him to sit, but I know that if he does sit, this is the Tatum we'll get in 3 months when it matters.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's funny. He's actually played the same amount of games as Shea, but they've just been destroying teams by so much that he's played like 4 or 5 games less in total minutes. So just blow more teams out, Celtics. Anyway,
I mean, look, you got Jokic is sitting every fourth quarter. Yeah. Like you have to be conscious of that. And I'm really curious to see how they handle, any blowout that they have after the All-Star break. Like you can't play Tatum in these fourth quarters. Like the MVP race is done. He's locked in first team All NBA. Like all that stuff is set. You have to be smart with him because he's just too important.
Exactly. Yeah. As you said, the award stuff is done. Like we know what and that's why I'm okay with them having this flip the switch type of attitude, which they've had the switch on a lot more than off lately. Cause I'm like, we know what's important. Let's get to the playoffs healthy, which man, this team has really now started to string together some health from all of their important guys for the most part. I don't have any wood close by to me, but
can we knock on everything?
Yeah.
Like you said, don't take the bait, stay focused and, be on high alert, especially if guys are going to be out for, the Spurs. But they're just the way that they're playing over the last 3 or so weeks leads you to believe that, they have broken through this malaise that was very frustrating and inconsistent and annoying, right? I feel like every time we hopped on this, it was like, how do you feel? I'm just annoyed.
I'm pissed
annoyed
off
with how they're playing. Yes. And finally, it seems like they've gotten out of that.
Hey, and I feel like we stayed strong in not panicking and tried to embrace the darkness in the way that Joe Mazzulla was communicating that, like, it is good to go through the adversity now. That was a great time to go through. And I mean, it's the trope of the NBA. December, January, February. It's a long fucking season, man. And like you get into January, you lead into the All-Star break. Everybody knows that, especially for a team that's a veteran team that's won a lot of playoff games, coming off a title, it made sense for there to be a little bit of malaise. I love that they're breaking out of it right before the All-Star break. We don't have to talk ourselves into being like, don't worry, doesn't matter. They're going to do it after the All-Star break. I like that they've at least showed me that the switch can be flipped as we go into the All-Star break.
If you look, I'm pretty sure they had a similar run this time last year, right before the break, and then out of the break, didn't they win like?
They went nuts. Well, that's why we're only 4 games off the pace. Is because the real run was after the All-Star break, where they basically didn't lose. At least that's my memory of it. It's like they went like completely nuclear. I feel like they had this exact game, like a road win in Miami with Tatum going crazy right before the All-Star break last year. And then they came out of it and like didn't lose for the entire month of March or something, like the majority of March. Well, I'm looking at it now. It's like pre All-Star break, they were at a 78% win percentage. Post All-Star break, they were at a 78% win percentage. So they were just really, really good. I'm sure maybe like because like they rested
like
guys
in their schedule, right?
Look,
like the 3 or 4, they won like their first 3 or 4 before the break, and then they came out of the break and won like 8 or 9 in a row. So it does start to feel like they're in that same mode of playing well into the break. And then we know what a rested Celtics team looks like. So
Just handle the rest well, Celtics. I know you're going to, a little success, a little comfort. Not something that the Celtics tend to handle particularly well.
Do not try in the All-Star game. Do not pull a Kemba Walker.
Oh my God.
Don't try. Don't do anything crazy. Get out of it unscathed and, attack the second half.
Beautiful. Greeny, well, these pods have started to get progressively more positive over the past few weeks here, which I think
it.
Exactly. I think we deserve. Everybody in the chat, appreciate you. We'll probably be back. Actually, I think I'm flying the day I'm working. I don't know. I'll talk to the people. I'll talk to you, Greeny, about the Spurs game. But alrighty, boys and girls, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, go Celtics.